So hello, this really short talk is answering the fundamental question, what is generative artificial intelligence? And in order to do that, we really need to start with a more general question, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is something that is not new at all. It's been used by a range of different sectors for a long period of time. In fact, it's actually been used by higher education. Two just very simple examples would be the use of something like a chatbot, which are quite common on university websites for those initial inquiry allocations, and a tool like Grammarly, which is used to aid students with their spelling, punctuation, and grammar, but goes beyond, the tools found in programs like Microsoft Word and makes recommendations or predictions about best ways to phrase or enhance your text. Artificial intelligence, in kind of general terms, there's kind of three kind of principal kind of uses of it. The first, which comes under the umbrella heading probabilistic reasoning, is the idea of machine learning or predictive modeling, where when you have a business or an organization that has enormous amounts of data and you use artificial intelligence to try and identify interesting correlations within that data. Perhaps the easiest example to understand is, when you've got large amounts of customer records, it looks for correlations between things the customers do to provide new insights to the business. The second one is, computational logic, some kind of rule-based reasoning. Obviously, humans can make rules when they're manipulating, things like data and techniques. But the more rules you make, the greater chance that these rules could contradict each other, or you could end up with a circular reasoning loop. With a few rules, it's obvious that this happens. When you get into tens of thousands of rules, this is much more problematic. An AI can help identify and spot these. And finally, optimization techniques, which is very much what it says, finding optimal combinations of the resources that you already have to create, optimization in terms of resource saving or allocation of resources and those kind of things. And these kind of, approaches have been used in, logistics and supply chain for decades. So AI has been around for a long time. But, what is generative AI? So in order to answer what is generative AI, we can perhaps start with an example of one tool which brought generative AI to the kind of public fore, and that is ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is one example of a generative AI tool. So it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer Model. So generative because it's an AI algorithm behind it which generates coherent, fluent, human-like responses, and it does that in response to something that we call a prompt, or sometimes it's called a function call. And part of the allure, approach, stroke alarm of these is this is very coherent and can be quite convincing and difficult to distinguish whether it's a human piece of text or not. The P stands for pre-trained. So, ChatGPT, when it's first released, had a type of model called ChatGPT 3, which was trained on a data set of text from the internet, which is rumored to be in the order of, around 300 billion words. And the T stands for transform model. So the transform model is probably best understood as something called a large language model. So this is the model that underpins the algorithm that the ChatGPT tool actually uses. And these models are actually probably worth just talking about. Just a quick timeline, though, just to show why this tool's, come to the fore now. Pre-2010, researchers were trying to effectively program the rules of language, into artificial intelligence, which was very complex to do. But in 2010, they instead perfected a translation of natural language. Then by 2014, they trained the AI to master the meanings of words. So words in context when they're next to each other and what they actually mean. Then a long period of development as large language foundational models were tuned and fine-tuned before finally in 2022 the first conversational large language foundation model was released. And there is more than one. I think we'll make that really, really clear. There is more than one here, but obviously we're focusing in this slide on ChatGPT, and its models. So what are the models? And the reason we're just mentioning this briefly is some of the tools we'll talk about briefly in a second do use different models behind them. So ChatGPT 3, Generative Pre-trained Transformer 3, is a pre-trained model on a large corpus of text. I've already mentioned 300 billion words. So it's designed to be flexible. It can be used for a variety of language tasks, written tasks, such as language translation, summarization, and question answering. And if you've had a go with the tools at all, it's probably the one that you've used. So Lambda, a language model for dialogue applications, is likewise, a pre-trained transformer language model. But this one was trained on dialogue, and its particular aim is picking up the nuances of open-ended conversations, so a slightly different focus. And this is the one that Google Bard uses. It started with a different database called Palm 2, but now it uses this one. And Llama, is a natural processing language model, which is compared to both GPT-4, talk about in a minute, and Lambda. But it was trained on more tokens, more identifiers to improve its performance with a lower number of parameters and lower number of prompts. It should be able to give you a more accurate answer. So they're types of text model, but they're also multimodal models. And perhaps the one that's had the most coverage recently is GPT-4, which is obviously Generative Pre-trained Transformer number 4. So this is a large scale model which can accept image and text inputs and produce text outputs. Instead of using a pre-trained database, the post-training alignment puts things into the internet. So you're effectively using a wider corpus of knowledge, and your outputs go out into that corpus of knowledge to fine-tune the performance of the system. And when we talk about, uses and risks, there's lots of interesting questions about this type of multimodal model. Just want to mention DALL-E 2, which is a multimodal rhythm that operates across different data modalities. And in this case, it creates novel images or artwork from natural language text input instead. So what about the tools? So there's lots of generative artificial intelligence tools. So basically, I'm calling GenAI tools anything that uses one of these large language models in the background, which includes ChatGPT and Bard. And there are a whole host of them. Just mention a few on the slide here. Jenny is a personal writing assistant that not only enables you to do the things that Grammarly does in terms of tone, language and grammar, but also can recommend and insert academic references into your text as you write. Consensus is a journal searching tool which not only provides you a summary of the paper in relation to your question, so summarizes the key part of the paper for you, but allows you to export and cite that, and gives you indications on how the article has been used by other resources in terms of numbers, citations, whereabouts in the article is cited, and the reputation of the journal that used it. ChatPDF is a tool where you upload a PDF document and you ask it questions. So something like an academic paper report, you ask questions, what's the methodology? What was the methodology here? It will answer for you. What were the main criticisms of the paper? It will answer for you. So there's lots of different tools here. Midjourney and DALL-E 2 are the two which use images rather than text. So that's just a really quick overview of what GenAI is.